All right, welcome back to another edition of the Best of Empty the Bench for 2020. Thomas Albano here, Fodera Nick Morgasen. All right, gentlemen. Next up on our list is the NFL, the National Football League. Now, the key difference among all the sports leagues is the NFL got very lucky. COVID hit as the NFL a month after the Super Bowl. The NFL had just wrapped up its season.
Usually, the NFL is one of those leagues where they get every bad thing that happens to them. And somehow they avoid, well, I shouldn't say they avoided it, but they avoided like the first quarter of it,
Right,
so to speak.
Well, I mean, just looking at some of the list of events that we had, when reflecting back with the NFL in 2020, the CBA, now the NFL and the NFLPA are one of the more tougher relationships when it comes to
You're not kidding.
working out a deal. And somehow they said, oh crap, we need to get our you-know-what together and get a deal done. And a deal somehow got done very fast.
The exact opposite of what we were expecting. In the interest of full disclosure, we didn't think this was going to happen.
Right. And then
I'll never forget when the two sides sat down. Like, there was a rumor for the longest time they might not play. They might play half a season.
But before the lockout, before COVID hit, rather, when the contract was up in like 2022, we were saying with how bad the NFL has gotten, with the relationship with its players and we said there's going to be a lockout and it's going to be a devastating one. No, somehow COVID hit and that didn't speed up the process. Instead, things got worked out quickly. And the NFL and Roger Goodell, for better or for worse, said, you know what? We are going to keep going. We are not going to let COVID affect us.
And in the beginning, he happened to have been right that it wasn't as bad.
Right.
And
well, in the beginning, they actually did stuff like, we just said the CBA got done. The draft was held virtually, which was a weird experience, but kind of fun in a way because we saw Goodell in his basement and everything.
Yeah, and how many memes were made of Roger Goodell in his basement due to...
a lot.
A lot, yeah.
Yes, because we all want to see the mansion that Roger Goodell lives in because of his pretty absorbent $40 to $45 million a year that he makes.
But in terms of I'd say the jury is still out on how they were able to perform in a COVID world because, A, the season's still going on as of this recording. But again, we have had a lot of cases.
Well, we could say that the season kind of crashed down once we got halfway through the season.
We had high expectations.
Well, I was going to say, the NFL, it seemed like, after, we doubted that they were going to pull it off, but it was weird because, we were like, oh, typical NFL, not, being the shield, but yet there was a part of us that was like, after all the crap we saw, with baseball and the two sides clashing, with all the civil unrest issues, and COVID, of course, we said, you know what, NFL season, get here because we need some normalcy. And it was kind of nice that first week of Sunday, that Sunday, just sitting down and watching sports, everything was okay in the world. And of course, the NFL ended up getting ravaged.
All good things come to an end eventually.
Yeah, that's the best expression. Let's see, the injuries that piled up in the first few weeks because of a lack of a preseason and training camp, a whole bunch of COVID outbreaks. It's kind of amazing how the NFL, as of this recording, hasn't declared Week 18 yet.
Well, I don't know. I guess NFL should stand for No Finish League because we might be heading to that at this point.
Yeah, the Goodell ain't going to let that happen.
But it's so crazy. It's crazy because, as we've gone forward and now this is, 1 or 2 weeks after the whole Ravens-Steelers outbreak, mostly Ravens, by the way. And I think Roger Goodell has a lot of explaining to do in this regard of how do you end up with 20 or 22 combined between coaches and players in an open situation.
We're also that same amount of weeks removed from a situation in which the Broncos had to play a game without a quarterback, without a legit quarterback.
Well, wait a minute. I'll go one step further. They tried to get a waiver for their quality coach or quarterback's coach to be the starting quarterback.
Went.
See ya.
So we had some good here with the NFL, but like Dick said, all good things come to an end. So let's take a look back on this journey of the National Football League in 2020. The NFL's CBA has been passed. So
Wait a minute, it has?
It's like a year early, but it's been passed.
Oh, good. That means we're going to have to listen to a year of Aaron Rodgers complaining that he didn't get what he wanted.
And so this new CBA, I believe, will go through the 2030 season. So
Well, yeah, usually when these
it's
leagues
10 years.
Usually when these leagues sign new CBAs, they do it for the long haul, usually.
All right. So let's talk about the goods for the players and the goods for the owners. So goods for the players, player revenue is going to go up from 47% to, I believe, 48.5%.
And just to put that number into perspective, $5 billion is going from the owners to the players.
Talk about, and that's billions with a B. I mean,
billions with a B.
You talk about how the NFL has a lot of money to throw around. Well, there you go. Even more money to throw around.
I think they make that money in beer sponsors alone.
I mean, the fact that I think that they were forced to make this because they didn't want it to become a problem because, you know, as the outbreak was becoming more serious, this was going to be something they had to get done and get done quickly.
Well, I think the player revenue number went up because the owners were pushing for a 17th game, which we'll get to in a moment.
I'd say which they got, which we'll get to. But in another gift for the players, marijuana testing. No more.
Great. So now every player's going to walk in like with a stink cloud over them.
I know. Now they're the second league to not marijuana test. I believe MLB.
MLB was the first.
Yeah, MLB does not marijuana test. Not the biggest fan of this move, but here's the thing that I was thinking of that might be a positive for those who aren't the biggest fan of these moves. Will this maybe make Roger Goodell take, since there's less things to discipline, will he take other things a little more serious now?
Not sure.
I'd say I know it's only hopeful. It's only hopeful, but
you mean like domestic violence and
yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, good luck with that.
All right, so now let's get into the good news for the owners and the rest of the league. So new playoff format, the one with it was only one bye in the conference and an additional wild card team. That is set to begin with this upcoming 2020 season. So the new playoff format now, it'll be 14 teams who make the playoffs. It'll be 7 from each conference. Only the top seeds now will receive a bye. And now the second seed, who was normally given a bye, they will now have to play the new 7th seed in an additional wild card weekend game.
This is essentially like Major League Baseball, where they added the second wild card game, and now there's only one team at the top of each side, division-wise.
Right. I was gonna say, like, now wild card weekend instead of Saturday being 4 and 8, and then like the Sunday was 1 and 4. I think now each day is going to be 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock.
Yeah, because they want the TV ratings, they want the money.
Want the TV ratings, they want everything they can get.
And it's also gambling centric.
Yeah, that's also the big one is the gambling, and the 17 game season. Now this, like we just said, 17 game season has been approved. Now this will not go into effect right away. This coming 2020 season and the next 2021 season will still be 16 games. It'll be 2022 in which
I'm curious. I'm curious to see how that's going to work, because I guarantee you, after a while, this is going to. Both sides are going to come back and reassess after a season of 17 games and see if it actually works.
I was going to say, so there is now a new report that the NFL is for its draft. It will still take place April 23rd for April 25th, but it is pulling the WNBA that we have talked about previously. It is going to be team executives, rather, I should say, are preparing to not, go to their war rooms at their team facilities wherever they are across America.
Telecommute.
Right. They instead will be doing what we do, and a lot of America is doing right now: Zoom conversations, virtual meetings, virtual rooms.
So, who convinced Roger Goodell after all these statements we've had over the past couple of weeks that Roger said he was refusing to not hold the draft in person. Who convinced Roger Goodell to finally say we need to do this?
I mean,
it might have involved some kind of heavy object, maybe a bowling ball or a sledgehammer. But then again, there's nothing up there, so it would probably be like cracking a Fabergé egg.
I can't believe I'm going to. Well, first of all, it's weird that we said this because remember last week we had that statement that any executive who talked out about it was going to get fined.
See that, and that's my problem. Like I was the one that got fired up about that statement.
We all were heated and agreed, but you were the one really, really heated about it.
Right, because I said, wait a minute, you're getting mad at people for trying to be safe and not catch the virus, and now all of a sudden you're being, I don't know, he's turning a 180.
Right. Well, here's my thing. Right. Well, first of all, it's not that I wasn't mad or fired up. It's what I expected with Roger. Also, we talked about it time and time again on this podcast. First Amendment, it protects you from the government. It does not protect you from your
private
business.
entities doing the same.
No, understood. But at the same time,
I know you understand that, but it's just a line that bears repeating.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, he has this tendency, and I'm sure if we go back and if everyone goes back and listens to our episodes about things that have happened with Roger Goodell, he makes a statement.
You absolutely should do.
Which you should do if you have nothing to do right now and you're sitting home quarantined. And
you want to go back to a time where sports was normal.
Right. But every time we talk about an issue with Roger Goodell, he makes a statement. He says he's going to punish people if they do things, and then he turns a 180 and goes the other way.
Oh, well, now I have a stupid question because this report came out like maybe 2 hours before. It seemed to come out like during the Trump conference call with these guys. Did some of the other commissioners maybe have a say and say, hey, Roger, we think you need to chill a little?
I guarantee you the owners must have took him aside, maybe gotten him some ice cream.
That's true, too, the owners.
Oh, yeah.
Technically, the commissioner works for the owners.
They probably took him aside and said, look, Roger, we are not going to endanger our fans, our players, our employees. That's just insane. I mean, is the NFL really worth dying for?
Cancellation of weeks 1 and 4, and then the NFLPA, and there's a great Twitter account, I think it's called Around the NFL, that broke news that the NFLPA board is talking about canceling the whole preseason.
Right, the weeks 1 and 4 are official. It's going to be the first time in a long time we're not going to see Giants-Jets either in the preseason or regular season. Jets-Eagles also canceled. Those are more local games here where we are. But now there is that movement to cancel the entire preseason. And it actually goes back to what we said something about last week. Last week we talked about the potential of, a universal DH in baseball with the baseball now coming back. And there has been a movement just like that to cancel the entire preseason for some time. You've had some people say it's going to lessen the amount of injuries, that teams suffer during the preseason. Others will argue the opposite or will say that the first couple of weeks will be trash kind of play. But it's like we said, if that happens and the entire preseason is canceled, it's just going to be like with the university. It's going to be experimental. This is going to be something. It's going to be a test to see what it looks like.
The exact same problems that you're going to run into with the MLB and the NBA and really all North American sports. You're going to run into with the NFL. Don't think you're going to be immune to it because you won't.
So here's basically how opt-outs in the NFL is going to work for those who don't know. If they are able, if they are owed like guaranteed money or some sort of advance in their salary, they will get it. Anything else, like a normal contract, they will not get their pay. However, their contract will be extended for 1 year. So anybody whose contract is coming up at the end of the 2021 season and opts out, their contract will now go to 2022, from my understanding.
Oh,
so
good.
You're essentially skipping a year.
Basically.
And Nate, well, of course, the Giants' right tackle, Nate Solder also opted out because he has a history of cancer, and so does his son. Again, he's immunocompromised, so I can't really blame him for that.
Can I say one thing that I'm tired of the freaking Twitter trolls who are getting on social media and say, "Oh, you're a word I'm not going to say because you're opting out of the season." Well, give me a break. These guys are trying to protect themselves, especially ones with high risk.
Because these people have mashed potatoes where their brains should be, Nick.
If you want, by the way, a little more of a fuller list, I don't have all the names, but Nate Solder, you are right. Also in the NFC East, Eagles wide receiver Marquise Goodwin and Lane Johnson, and two Vikings players at least have opted out. In probably the biggest blow in football, Damian Williams, running back of the Chiefs, who had two big touchdowns in that Super Bowl win over the 49ers, electing to opt out.
Also C.J. Mosley of the Jets.
DJ Mosley of the Jets. Also, at least 6, if not 7, Patriots defensive players.
I think it's 7 now.
It's up to 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard conspiracy theories that this is all some kind of weird conspiracy to get to Belichick making his
No.
Let me bring it up. You're right. Nick is right. Let me bring it up. So there's a conspiracy theory going around that Belichick is actually encouraging these opt-outs, so that way a Patriots tank, they can point at this COVID as a scapegoat.
Can we not give him this much credit, please?
And they can tank to get Trevor Lawrence,
God. I
quarterback coming out of college.
I swear if they finish last, I'm calling it now. I'm saying conspiracy theory. I think we should suspend the Patriots just for like 3 years if that happens, and just say we're done. That's it.
Crap.
Can you believe it? Would you put it past Belichick?
No. Probably not. There are probably bodies buried beneath Foxborough.
If we're not careful, there's probably another.
Ruthless, I'm telling you.
If we're not careful, there's probably another massage parlor waiting for another, what to happen.
Oh God, please don't do that. Oh God, that image! Please get it out. Oh.
Okay, but let me talk about one thing here. You mentioned before, Nick. These guys are going to be traveling. As now it's only going to be for 8 games as compared to the MLB, which is going to be not a full 60 game season, a 60 game season. But it's going to be for like full weeks and stuff. So, I mean, I see the trouble that could come with all the travel and stuff, but I think NFL has less to lose than MLB, because what if the NBA and the NHL successfully get through their playoffs with the bubbles and potentially start their next season in bubbles, and the NFL manages to, there will be positive tests, there will be hiccups.
And self-destruct?
No, but the NFL manages to get their season done. Because if the NFL gets their Nick, but listen to me. If the NFL gets their season done and the NBA and NHL get through their bubble periods, what does that say about MLB?
I think it says that Major League Baseball is run by the wrong person. That's what it says to me.
Because if they think that they're going to be able to get this season done without any sort of delay, or let's just call it outbreak.
By the way,
they're dreaming.
Anyone out there watching our feed right now, if you think Rob Manfred is doing a terrible job, you see our Twitter account and our Facebook account rolling on the bottom of our screen. Go to our social media accounts and put #FireRobManfred right now. I want everybody to do that if you believe he's doing such a terrible job. I'm telling you.
Firing Rob Manfred.
Rob Manfred's going to start a Twitter campaign to get us fired.
Hey, that's more publicity for us. It's okay.
Joke's on us. We can't cancel ourselves.
This is a still developing story, and we've been all over the place today. So I'm just going to read it. This is courtesy of the Score, probably my favorite sports news app. So I'll just read it here. According to Adam Schefter of ESPN, the NFL is investigating a number of positive COVID-19 tests from its teams using a single laboratory in New Jersey. The statement from the NFL says, Saturday's daily COVID testing returned several positive tests from each of the clubs serviced at the same laboratory in New Jersey. We are working with our testing partner, BioReference, to investigate these results while the clubs work to confirm or rule out the positive tests. Clubs are taking immediate precautionary measures as outlined in the NFL and NFLPA's health and safety protocols to include contract tracing, isolation of individuals, and temporarily adjusting the schedule where appropriate. The other laboratories used for NFL testing have not had similar results. And the teams that Okay, so that's one thing we were trying to figure out, which we now have figured out. So there's multiple labs that the NFL is using, but there's something going on with, they say, with one of the labs that they use in New Jersey, and the teams that have been affected in this case are the Cleveland Browns, the Chicago Bears, the Buffalo Bills, the Detroit Lions, Pittsburgh Steelers, Minnesota Vikings, New York Jets, Green Bay Packers. Nick, before the show, you found New England Patriots, and there is a mystery 10th team that we don't know about that has been impacted.
Mystery.
Yeah, a mystery, but that has been impacted with irregular COVID-19.
That's the famous team to be named later.
Right. According to Schefter, 9 false positives for the Bears. The Jets have had 10 false positives, and the Vikings have 12 presumptive positives. Again, they all come from the same New Jersey lab. The Browns and Bears have postponed their morning practices to earlier this afternoon.
But you know what the sick part about this whole thing is? This is all going to go back to blaming Roger Goodell, and we're going to say, all right, Roger, what the heck did you do? What's wrong with your labs?
Just more.
Who did you make mad? Who did you skimp on? Who did you refuse to pay?
There is a few more details to the story. Unfortunately for the Bills, one of these players involved in the irregular test results scandal is starting quarterback Josh Allen.
But he's a false positive, right?
He is a false positive, but they're still going to have to take some precautions until they can have the proof, like, the 2 negatives or whatever. So,
but isn't this just great? And I feel like, unfortunately, like, this is a sad situation, but I feel like don't get me wrong, there's definitely some comedy in this situation because
it's definitely dark comedy, but it's infuriatingly avoidable.
No, but the reason I say it's comedic is because, like Nick said, this is a total Roger Goodell situation where he tries to do the right thing. They set up all the COVID-19 situations, and now it becomes false positive.
And he gets screwed anyway. Well, I think, honestly, just going off my gut reaction to hearing this, it really is, to me, this really is the story of this country's response to coronavirus in microcosm, because it's really an indictment on how we as, a culture and as government, state and federal, have been unable, absolutely, utterly unable through inaction or just plain old maliciousness, not being able to get a lid on this.
Well, but there's more, or a little bit more details to the story before you guys chime in. So they consider it, of course, more of a lab issue, and that's coming from a very reliable source to us, Kim Jones of the NFL Network. The Patriots and Giants also have been affected, but the Patriots reportedly don't consider the situation disruptive enough. And the Giants, as we were talking about before the show, there are no players or coaches who are impacted by this. It's just
so it would be
staff.
Personnel only that would be affected.
Outside personnel. So
the NFL recently, this is according to Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network, extended its daily testing period through September 5th. The league has conducted more than 100,000 tests for the coronavirus since training camp began in late July. Only 1% have returned positive.
I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that at all, and I'll tell you why I don't believe that at all. First of all, there are states in this country that can't get 100,000 tests done.
They can't afford it.
They can't afford 100,000 tests.
I mean, off the top of my head, Nick.
Are you telling me that you all of a sudden marshaled the manpower to be able to get this done?
Well, it's the NFL.
Well,
it's the NFL, but the NBA is different. But I'll get into that later. But go ahead, Nick.
What I was going to say, and I want to make the point before I forget it, is we were talking about the amount of positive tests, not just in sports, but Nick, you started to allude to what's going on around the country. They're talking about some of the projections that by December, they're talking about over 300,000 people testing positive for the COVID test. So what's going to happen? We're going to run into the flu. We're going to run into flu season and all that stuff. What are we going to do?
And if I may use an anecdotal example, just to demonstrate how screwed up this system is, my mother just recently, as in a couple of weeks ago, got a COVID test because she was feeling certain symptoms, and I want you guys to guess. See if you can guess how long it took those results to get back.
Couple weeks.
10 days.
Ballpark figure.
10 days.
Couple weeks.
8 friggin' days. Mind you, it turned out negative, thank God. But what if she was coughing up a lung? What if she was on the bed? It was literally staying in bed, dying. And
We have 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today is the first Sunday of football. Hell, for the Chiefs and the Texans, it's even more time. Time is of the essence because in 18 days and an hour from now, they kick off the season in Kansas City.
so if you think that you're going to be able to set up a testing apparatus that is able to give you the positive test you need in the time frame you need it in, and be able to create protocols that players can follow, and they won't be incentivized to break them, or let me rephrase that, they will be properly penalized if they do break them. If you think that's all of that is plausible within 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
That is a fantasy.
It's not
A
happening.
fantasy.
I'm going on the record right now, and I'm going to say the season does not start on time.
I mean, it's egg on all of our faces because we were the ones making fun of the bubble concept when we heard the NBA were.
Yeah, and the NBA is coming out smelling
they're
like
doing
roses.
great.
The NBA smells like roses right now because
Yeah,
of
they're
it.
doing great.
Even Nick, who is saying sports really shouldn't come back till we have a vaccine. Even Nick has admitted before in the show, if the NFL came back in time, for America, that's a morale boost.
It's a morale boost, but like you just said, I've been saying that it's not going to be 100% safe. You're not going to be able to get the guarantees you want unless there is a vaccine.
I'm just gonna casually go through this. Let's see if there's any
You
names.
have an hour to break this down?
Hey, Nick, but before you read that list, hey, Nick, I think there's a doctor in the house. Is there a doctor in the house somewhere?
Yes, his name is Dr. Two Checks Goodell.
Oh. Read them off.
He has a degree, a doctorate degree in fining people, and suspending people.
Okay.
Read off them injuries, boy.
Okay, Bengals at Eagles. Geno Atkins out. Alshon Jeffrey out. Jalen Rager out. 49ers at Giants. Jimmy Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, Tevin Coleman, Dee Ford. Basically, the entire 49ers starters are out. Saquon Barkley, obviously, out for the year. Cam Akers is out for the Rams. Zach Moss and Dawson Knox are out for the Bills. Tremaine Edmonds is questionable. Henry Ruggs is out. Josh Jacobs is questionable. Patriots, James White. That's not an injury, unfortunately. That's the passing of his father in a car accident and his mother getting seriously injured. Our thoughts out to him. Julian Edelman and N'Keal Harry, questionable. Duke Johnson is questionable for the Texans. The Steelers somehow have nobody on their injury list. That's a miracle.
That's incredible.
Khalil Mack for the Bears is questionable. Julio Jones for the hamstring is questionable. Let's see. For Washington football team, Steven Sims is questionable. For the Browns, Olivier Vernon is out. Denzel Ward is questionable. The Titans, A.J. Brown is out. For the Vikings, Mike Hughes, Troy Dye, Cameron Dantzler out. Mike Boone is questionable. For the Jets, Jamison Crowder is out. Yes, you're going to keep track of this. Keep track of the time, too. Rashad Perriman out. The Panthers, Christian McCaffrey is out. Tyrod Taylor is out for the Chargers, and that's because we found out a doctor punctured his lung.
Doctor punctured his lung. What kind of incompetent sawbones are you running with in the Chargers organization? I'm actually going to inject something into your rib, but if your insides come outside, that is not something you can sue me for, yes? You cannot actually, if your brains actually come out of your ears, let's just call that a side effect, right? I give you some Tylenol and you go back on the field, huh? Good.
Melvin Ingram is doubtful. Drew Lock is out. Philip Lindsay out. Jerry Jeudy questionable. Kenny Galladay is questionable. Devontae Adams is doubtful. Michael Thomas is out. Guys, what happened?
You know what happened? No training camp happened.
It's basically a mash unit at this point. Oh my god!
You know what?
Oh god!
I have an effed up theory. Okay.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh, god, here it comes.
I have a really effed up theory. Roger Goodell wanted these injuries to happen so it would look like his league is not over the top, and people would feel bad for him in this time of COVID-19.
You're ascribing a level of brain power to Roger Goodell that I don't think he possesses. I mean, there is a little hole in the bottom of him where Jerry Jones can actually stick his fist. So I really wouldn't expect all of a sudden the puppet to come to life. Is what I'm saying. I mean, unless you're wishing upon a star, Geppetto, I don't think that's actually going to happen.
I know, but I'm curious. I bet you he wanted all these injuries just so his league wouldn't look the best out of everybody else because he knows that people are going to criticize him.
I mean, we rag on the preseason a lot. That's practically part and parcel around these parts.
I think you need a training camp, though. You need maybe 2 games of a preseason. I know the irony. I just said that 2 games.
All I can say is, though, that Roger Goodell was really crafting this one up. But look at the NFL. They were still traveling like it's a normal season for the most part.
Yeah.
They're all wearing masks on the sideline. I think I saw another fine today for the Raiders.
They did.
Yeah,
another $50,000 for wearing a mask.
Well, there was an ineligible person in the locker room that they got a fine for that was not part of the personnel. So that shouldn't surprise
me. He doesn't go to school here.
No, but Mr. Spider Two-Eyed Banana, I think, got a little too comfortable with his situation. But
what? His name is Jenkins. He does my taxes.
But I don't know.
Call him Squeaky.
But I don't know. How do we look at this situation? Because now we see an outbreak with the Titans. The Vikings, thank God, didn't have to deal with the situation. But now you have teams like Pittsburgh who are going to play 13 straight weeks now because of it.
Well, there's some more details we forgot, gentlemen. There's some breaking news going on right now. Earlier today, Cam Newton tested positive for the coronavirus, as did at least one member of the Kansas City Chiefs, a practice squad quarterback. So, effectively, tomorrow's Pats versus Chiefs game, guys, arguably the biggest game of this week, is now off because of COVID-19. They are looking into possibly doing this game now on Tuesday for a national audience, I would assume. However, that those details have not been finalized.
You better hope and pray, the NFL better, that this doesn't happen again, because there's only so many weeks you can, because this week is, I think, a gimme, because you had a bye week anyway, so you can just shuffle it around like a Jenga,
Well, they were able to move it around. All they needed to do was move a Ravens bye around 1 week.
This was the first official bye week, right? Where because everyone played the first 3 weeks, and now this was the first official bye week.
This was supposed to be the last full week. Next week was supposed to start the byes, but now because of this, technically this is the first bye week. Now, and I know fantasy isn't exactly a priority right now, but here's what I'm thinking, because these kind of connect. You know, like there's a whole debate about whether you can put people like on IR or give them the out status should they get COVID. I mean, not should they get COVID, but like if a player on a team doesn't get COVID, but their game gets postponed because of COVID, can you put them on and everything? And right now, sort of the situation is, because like we were saying, you could easily move around the bye weeks. Like they only moved around the Ravens bye week to fix this first situation, but you have to consider something now. 8 players. We've gone from 2 to 8 for the Titans. That's definitely, if this continues, definitely going to put their matchup with the Bills next week in jeopardy. And if that doesn't happen, then what do you do?
Plus personnel.
Exactly. Yeah.
Plus personnel, by the way. Let's not forget that.
Right.
So,
I know.
We're talking 15, 16 total, I think.
Yeah. Plus personnel. Plus, if this happens again, you're not going to have that kind of leeway.
So that was my next question to you guys. If we have another team breakout in this situation, do we have to shut the NFL?
Should possibly.
Should they? Yes.
Will they?
No.
I don't know how you can't. If we have another breakout, like another team that 7 or 8 players get the virus, you might. I don't know if you have to shut it down for good, but you might have to stop until it's under control.
Let's look at this from what the MLB's perspective. If we were to graph that, what happened this year onto what's going to happen in the NFL, you can't just have like 2 games in a row.
Well, I was just going to say, like, if the Titans, I was just going to say, is one possibility NFL's considering, and I hope they're not, okay, the Titans are just going to play one less week. They're only going to have a 15-game season.
But you can't do that. You really can't do that in a sense because the NFL, you need every game.
Short season.
Right.
And you're only playing 1 time a week, 2 times if you get a Thursday game.
Well, I forgot when they put the schedule together. Didn't they build in like a week 17, week 18?
Well, week 17. You're talking about the week 18 when they try to add on another regular season game. That's not going to happen for another couple of years.
No. I thought they added a cushion this year.
So as like a safety valve.
As far as I know, no.
But I don't know.
Not as far as I can tell. But
unless just thinking out loud, the NFL decides, because of an on-the-fly issue or whatever, okay, we'll push the regular season back a week, and
but
that spare week between the conference championship and Super Bowl won't happen. We'll just go right into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but here's the problem, and what Roger Goodell doesn't understand, like most of the other commissioners, he's so greedy for the money that he doesn't care. He's just going to say, "Oh, you have COVID? Bye. We'll put somebody else in."
That's why I was saying that they're not going to suspend. They're all the money in the league right now, and it reminds me of. You know what it reminds me of, guys? Maybe just because I'm an MMA guy, it reminds me of what the UFC was trying to do. Like, they're trying to push through it.
Yeah, but at least they had the proper testing, like, to make sure everybody was tested. In the NFL... Wait. So what I'm saying is that the NFL... They came out and said, "Oh, it's a lot of money," which I laughed at because the NFL is worth what, like $17 or $18 billion?
Not more.
So how are they complaining about paying for tests every day? Like, I never understood that.
Exactly. They do have the capacity. They just don't have the willingness to implement the kind of steps that are necessary to make sure this thing doesn't happen.
They make billions of dollars in beer sponsors alone.
Look at the NFL's testing protocols or safety protocols in terms of this. They're so friggin' vague. You can't really tell what exactly, if any protocols were broken in this.
What protocols? They don't have any protocols.
Exactly, you have stumbled upon my point, my good man.
Well, I was going to ask, all these outbreaks and stuff, how are these teams getting COVID? Are these, is somebody going into the outside like they shouldn't and bringing it in?
Well, wait.
We won't know because it's a violation of HIPAA rules unless they actually say something.
But wait a second. Well, how did Cam Newton's name come out? We still can't figure out how that came out. But wait, that's not my point.
Well, the Patriots announced it. That's why.
The Patriots announced it.
Oh, did they? Okay. Well, they had to get permission from him first. But what I was going to say, remember, it's not a bubble situation. It's not. So they could technically go out.
I was going to say, but again, my point, did technically a player, a personnel, somebody from the team interact with somebody and then, like in a bubble situation where they wouldn't be able to and now have brought it in?
No. Roger Goodell has no effing backbone to stand up and say, "Oh, wait, you guys are breaking the rules." And I said this to you guys, and tell me if you remember me saying this, that he set up all these threats in rules that if unauthorized workouts came through, you might have to forfeit your games. Well, we had 23 tests and there's no forfeit.
Pro Football Talk reported that some inner circles in the NFL were talking about a potentially historic punishment that would make all of the punishments, as much as you want to call them punishments or not, that the Patriots had gotten over the years. They actually said these words, quote, "look like parking tickets." I was thinking bombs. I was thinking forfeiting this game, potentially maybe forfeiting that Steelers game and the Steelers getting their bye back. I was thinking.
Wait a minute. I was thinking maybe sayonara for the season. That's what I would have done.
That would have been I don't know if I would have gone that route, but I would have gone maybe potentially postseason ban.
Well, if you lose a few games right off the bat, you're going to have an issue getting into the playoffs anyway. But in my opinion, which Roger Goodell, as I said, has no backbone and all he cares about is the profit. So he's going to try to get those games back as soon as he possibly can. In my opinion, I would have said, hey, you broke the rules. You have 20 and a historic amount of positive tests. Bye. We don't need you this year.
Here's what I want to know. And I know it's kind of screaming into the void here because I don't think anybody's been able to give me a simple, straight answer as to my question, but I must ask. Simple. Why? Why did you do this? Why did you have an unauthorized workout in the middle of a friggin' pandemic?
I was going to say, I think the blame goes multiple ways. Yes, it's easy to say, it's easy to have Roger Goodell as the punching bag in here. And
and
you're
that's
right.
definitely a well-worn punching bag.
I just say, and you're right. And I'm going to actually quote, someone that I know. There was a whole lot of uncertainty in this situation for a league that had months upon months to create contingency plans. But let's not give all the blame to Goodell here, because if the NFL went to the Titans and told you guys, like dogs, like when you're training a dog, you go, no, and you still do it, and not just do it multiple times, and and you're the cause for a lot of this COVID concerns in the NFL. You don't think that you guys should be punished for this? You guys don't think that they need a historic punishment? And all I hear about is loss of draft picks and fines and everything. Come on, Goodell.
Nobody is taking this seriously. This microcosm is how this country got to where it is right now. Nobody is taking this seriously.
And my whole thing is about the forfeit was, you can't punish the Bills for the Titans being stupid. You can't make the Bills play Monday or Tuesday and expect them to play a Thursday game. Now, of course, that Bills-Chiefs game for Thursday.
You punished the Steelers already.
Right. I was going to say, you moved the whole Steelers around. The Ravens had to change their schedule around to accommodate that. How much more can you... I get being flexible, and it's great to see some flexibility, but how much more can you do? This is going to be an ongoing thing. We have said that the league was going to be tested, and here's your test. And so far, you're failing.
And you're failing.
By the way, the point I want to make before I forget is look at Major League Baseball, who finally came to its senses with a bubble. Look at the NBA, who was in a bubble.
The entire time, and the NHL, who was in bubble the entire time.
Not one positive test.
Now, maybe I'm doing math wrong, but I think that when you're in a bubble, it seems like it keeps the positive test down. The NFL, who likes to go against every gamut there is in the book, has now seen what happened.
Well, the NFL really doesn't go for that fancy book learning stuff. The only math they use is 2 + 2 = go to hell. So, really, I don't see why you're applying logic to a system where everybody's just walking into walls and running around like chickens with their heads cut off. I don't really understand what you're trying to accomplish here.
I was being facetious, okay? That's what the NFL...
Well, there is one other way you put math in the NFL, and that's if you take banana and you divide it by spider, and then you take the square root of 2y, and it's 2. I think it's time to ask, it's time for these contingency plans. What should the NFL do if it is forced to pause the season?
You want my real honest opinion? They should pause the season right now. Because... in my opinion, there's way too many positive tests. The Titans issue is a problem. Obviously, they can't follow the rules. They end up in a freaking high school doing voluntary workouts together as a group. And you know what's so funny about this whole thing? And I think Nick could help me describe this a lot better. But they're a bunch of adults who have to be treated like kids and can't follow the rules. Right, Nick?
But this is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying you're trying to apply the logic.
No. Forget the logic. Forget the logic. I'm talking about...
Nobody knows what they're doing. They're all a bunch of temperamental 5-year-olds.
That's my point. That's what I was hoping you would say, actually.
Exactly. They are a bunch of 5-year-olds with full diapers and cranky because they haven't had a nap. What do you think was going to happen? They just have bigger wallets than we do.
See, and this is why, I know the Bills and Titans game is scheduled for Tuesday now, and the Chiefs Bills game is now for week 6. That was supposed to kick off week 6, is now on Saturday. I'll get into that on that rescheduling issue in a little bit when we're doing our predictions for week 5 at the end of this episode. But whether we think, it's time to wait a week, maybe we wait a week, because I'm still concerned, by the way, that Titans game is even going to kick off because, there were no, it's the two complete clear days, which they have. But who's to say that a Titans player isn't going to test positive tomorrow or test positive on Monday or the morning of the game? You don't know. And
you and I talked about this when Justin Turner was positive and was taken out of the game. How does this keep happening? That someone plays in a game and then they somehow end up positive. It doesn't happen. They had to have been positive before they played.
If I may,
go ahead.
That's not a surprise because the testing and tracing protocols and our gut instinct when things like this happen, it happened in MLB, is to say that somebody must have broke protocol. Right? Somebody must have disobeyed the rules and went somewhere, went out to a bar, went fishing, went cornholing, as far as I know. But the NFL's response to this, their testing and tracing program, their way to contain this, is so friggin' slapdash and thrown together. You can't really tell whether it's somebody breaking the rules when the rules are so different from team to team.
But they're not different. There's a protocol that has to be followed.
There's a protocol, but if teams have leeway in whether they want to follow it or not, disaster tends to happen.
Nick, you're kind of, if I can break in for a second, you're kind of in referencing the Titans disaster that happened earlier this season.
Exactly. Right. We know that was a clear violation of the rules. And what did they get? Essentially, slap on the wrist.
By the way, hey, Nick, I think you ran into John Gruden about the fines, didn't you?
Well, first of all, Mr. Spider Two Wide Banana thinks he can take on COVID by, he thinks it's a tackling dummy. And it's just, again, these people are supposed to be so much smarter than us. Why are they not?
By the way, and the way that Roger Goodell is finally woken up to the pandemic or disaster.
A robot doesn't sleep, so
right.
I don't know what you're saying.
Okay, maybe he doesn't sleep, but $500,000 fine, $150,000 for Gruden, and I think $260,000. Like, who cares about the money? No one cares that you're finding an NFL team money.
You're endangering people's lives. Do you think they care about what's in your wallet?
No, and that's why. And by the way,
the loss of money is going to make him understand.
And who cares about 2 6-round picks? Those are garbage picks anyway. No one cares.
Because this is the only way that Roger Goodell can actually think of things. If it's not anything to do with football punishments, he doesn't have any idea. It's like staring at a Chinese math problem in Mandarin. It is. It's just his brain just can't fit it together. He can't square the circle.
Right. So the other guy, I don't know if you mentioned this, Tom, also, but you said Lynn Bowden of the Dolphins, the Packers, Jordan Love also on the COVID list as well.
Yeah.
So this is what the podcast is going to be. Just 30 minutes of me impotently flailing.
So do all the teams have a COVID positive at this point, Tom, or no?
I don't know about all. I can say most, absolutely.
A good percentage.
A good percentage. I don't know if I can.
Had or do they currently have?
Have had during
the season.
Yeah. I would say I can say
pretty
most
damn close.
I would say I think that's the thing. Pretty damn close. I can't say 100% for certain because I don't have the entire list in front of me. But yeah.
God, I mean, who would have the whole list at this point? We can't keep track of who's got COVID and who doesn't. And with all the HIPAA rules, like, you have to wait until these guys tell their teams, I want them to
have to follow those, though.
And remember, right, you do have to follow those HIPAA laws. And remember, Also, just because you get placed on the COVID reserve list does not necessarily mean that these guys have COVID. They may have been, like in Stafford's
They
case,
may have been coming. They may have come
high-risk
in contact with
post-contact.
somebody who tested positive.
Right.
Well, but couldn't that be everybody in that sense, though, that everyone could technically be on the COVID?
Technically, yes, but I think according to the CDC guidelines, it has to be you need to be around somebody for about 15 to 20 minutes, or more than 15 minutes, because I think that I think raises the odds that you would have been exposed to the virus. I don't understand how that works because I'm not an epidemiologist. I just, but I think that's what they're thinking is that's what they call close contact. If you're there for more than if you're in contact with somebody for more than 15 minutes.
This is crazy. I mean, I'm shocked. Like, I don't know how to, I'm lost for words. Me and Nick would probably laugh at me because I'm lost for words. That doesn't happen very often.
That is a rare occurrence. That is the purple unicorn of this podcast. Nick Morgasen has nothing to say, folks.
And additionally, obviously, we don't talk about college football, and we don't talk about, as I said, we don't talk about college football often. We don't talk about golf really at all. But COVID-19, of course, has impacted I will go on record. I think this is the worst week we had in sports world of COVID-19 since sports has come back.
A unified way of combating this was never going to happen because they don't do things like that. Like I've said for weeks now, their approach to COVID is basically just no.
Basically, he doesn't want to listen. And unfortunately, and for younger people, cover your ears if you don't want to hear this. Roger Goodell is taking a shit on the floor and not wiping it up at this point.
I mean, yeah, he basically. What hasn't he done that with? What crisis has he not screwed up?
So to just end the context here, as you see in our thing. So the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game has been rescheduled. It was originally rescheduled to take place tomorrow at 1:15. It has now again been pushed back to Tuesday Night Football, basically. And even then, there's no certainty. But if we do have Tuesday Night Football, the Baltimore-Dallas game, which was scheduled for Thursday night, would be a double. We would have double Monday football again in Week 13. We would have no Thursday Night Football.
What I don't understand here is if you had the 13 or 14 positive tests, in my opinion, 3 days is not enough for contact tracing.
Well, I was going to say, we were talking about the whole situation and the NFL, lack of caring, and the fact that players, Pittsburgh and NBC, who was supposed to broadcast the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, lost their Thanksgiving game. Basically, you had Steelers players within the last couple of days complaining that Baltimore should have forfeited.
Oh, yeah. They were going apeshit on Twitter to the point where they were like, why are we? Well, because they lost their bye week originally due to a COVID pandemic with the Titans.
And that's another situation that you're talking about here. Pittsburgh and Baltimore were in a previous COVID situation during Week 4 and Week 5 when all that COVID madness was going on. Both their bye weeks are gone. So if this game can't take place Tuesday, what are you going to do now?
Either Week 18 or they don't play it.
This is what the lack of a unified strategy from the league does.
But this is my point, that Roger Goodell is not doing what he should be doing as the commissioner of the NFL. He needs to wake up. He needs to stop it with, I understand businesses need to make money, but spend the money, keep your players safe, do the bubble situation if you need to, and stop.
Well, Mark Mask, who we love and follow on Twitter with all his updates, I think he put it best. Unfortunately, this is a year where, they just care about getting through the season. They don't care about everything else.
They don't care about the human cost it's going to take. And if a player dies, they're not going to care.
That's going to be on Roger Goodell's.
And I would not expect Roger Goodell to do anything much in the same way that I would not expect a monkey to all of a sudden know how to solve algebra problems.
Yeah, but this is.
But as I Nick, I was going to say, we aren't at the situation yet where we're talking about potentially a player death, but I think if that happened, I think there would be American political pressure and everything that might force Goodell's hand at that situation. I don't know if you can say he wouldn't.
And then they'll have a moment of silence and then just keep going on the way they have.
Time out. So we have the Ravens with their 13-14 tests. Let's move on to a few other teams. The Broncos. The Broncos just had a mini breakout of their own with 3 or 4 players.
Yes, they did.
And
out what the hell went on there. Then you had a Browns player, a Falcons player,
Larry Fitzgerald,
who came out, and that was broke. I thought there were rules in place that if we had a outbreak, they were supposed to shut down for the week.
Okay, so let's talk about that end of the spectrum. So there, instead of, I guess, because the week has already started technically with Thursday, and it seems like they want to get tomorrow's games in, the NFL has issued a memo of sorts that basically says Monday and Tuesday, unless you are playing in Monday Night Football or Tuesday Night Football, your facility, your teams, your practices are shut down.
How does that stop people from being around people on the outside, though?
It doesn't.
Doesn't.
But it gives them cover to say, "Hey, we did everything we could." It's a butt saving move, is what it is.
I was gonna say it's basically, you gotta say, maybe they are doing everything that they could, but there's a catch to that. They are doing everything they could without a bubble, because how many times did we say bubble?
You know what's critical and we're missing this year? Maybe most people know, but some people are just finding this out. The Super Bowl is being played in a bubble. Why is it?
I don't think that's been confirmed yet, has it?
Yes, it has. It's been confirmed that they're playing inside Raymond James Stadium in a bubble for the Super Bowl. So why?
I thought you meant the entire postseason. Like, I don't think they confirmed the entire postseason.
Just the Super Bowl. So if we're playing the Super Bowl, which is the most coveted game of the year, we agree that's the most coveted game of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
By a country mile, yes.
So why are we not treating everything else like it needs to be played in a bubble?
Well,
answer on this.
Well, I'll tell you, because you know what's going to happen with this Pittsburgh-Baltimore game, and I've said this is going to happen. Well, I can't say it's going to happen. I have said personally that I think it's going to happen. I don't know if this is going to be the situation, but you got to do Week 18. You got to do Week 18. You got to take that bye week between the conference championship and Super Bowl away, and you just got to get, because they were talking. I just said they were talking about previously doing the whole postseason bubble. I think we might have to get to that point.
I'm going to steal a page out of the Nick Fodera book right now, which is basically until they lose money from a game where they lose a game due to a cancellation due to COVID, they're not going to do the bubble until they lose money. Is that right, Nick?
I would, yeah. To be honest with you, I've been absolutely astonished at the amount of mental gymnastics that they've done to justify not doing everything they could to prevent this from spreading. But again, it's the NFL. I mean, negligence bordering on criminality is pretty much their raison d'etre.
But